Breaking the gray.
It is a celebration, Sarah. It's a celebration. Yes, season 2.
Hurrah!
It's not really seasons, is it? But it's more so, it's more so a milestone that we hit, the next phase of our biohacking journey.
That's right. The second installment. Here we go.
Now, what's in store for us in season 2? You always bring amazing surprises. What's in store for this season?
So this season, well, what I thought was in season 1, we went through a lot of topics and you and I kind of chewed the fat on a lot of these things. And then I was thinking, you know what? I know a lot of people who have got real expertise in some of these topics. So why don't we bring on some of these people? And a lot of them are people that I've met through my hacking journey and who are now my friends. And we can start to go through step by step and allow people to see, okay, how can I introduce some of these topics into the things I do? Let's hear it from the horse's mouth rather than you and I waffling on about that. Let's bring on some real experts into this and really get to see how people are integrating some of these things into their lives.
So these would be the heroes of biohacking.
Yes, we have the biohacking greats. Let's bring on some of the biohacking monsters.
Well, I can't wait. So today, who are you surprising us with today?
So today at the start of season 2, I thought we would start with the basics, the fundamentals, because if you're talking about how you're going to hack yourself or how you're going to sort of optimize where you're at, you need to start with the basics. And so the basic really is sleep, eat, breathe. So let's go right back to that. So today we're going to do sleep, because if you can get your sleep right, everything else follows on from that.
Yes.
That's the theory. And sleep is a massive thing in biohacking right now. You know, there's so many people who are talking about how to optimize sleep, how to really get down into the kind of granular detail about sleep. Lots of devices, lots of new tech, lots of monitoring equipment. And one of my go-to people when I'm looking at sleep is Mollie McGlocklin. And she is fabulous. She has a podcast, Sleep is a Skill. She's talking from experience that she's built up over many years. She had very chronic insomnia, and she learned to deal with it. And she learned a lot along the way about circadian biology and all the things that we talk about. So she's probably one of the experts in this area. So I think she's an excellent first guest for season 2.
I can't wait. My sleep is probably the lowest of my standards in my life. I just don't respect it. I don't give it any time. I'm excited to learn how to professionalize this thing that I don't do well. Let's do it.
Yeah, me too, because I think it's okay. And then what else can you do? You can always get better. So yeah, let's hear from Mollie.
All right, here we go.
Today, I'm super excited to meet your friend and our special guest.
Yes. Yeah, today we have a special guest because today we're going to talk about sleep as one of the most fundamental things you can do for your health. And so we're very lucky to have Mollie McGlocklin on from Sleep is a Skill, because if anybody knows about sleep, then it's Mollie. So hello, Mollie. We're very lucky to have you today. I know you're hot off doing a clubhouse, so you've kind of just jumped from one thing to the other. But how are you?
Oh, well, thank you, number one, so much for having me. I so deeply respect what, basically anything you're a part of. I want to know what it is, what you're doing. I really admire you as a thought leader, and I'm excited to be on your stage to discuss one of my favorite topics, because it's transformed my whole life, which is the ability to transform our sleep. So I just really thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, the pleasure is all ours, I can assure you. And sleep is such a huge topic now. And in fact, I think it's probably the biggest topic in health, especially if you look at what's going on in the biohacking and in wellness and, you know, certain discoveries about chronic illness. So really, I think it's fundamental. It's the fundamental thing you can do for your health right now, you know, especially now we're all in lockdown. You know, one thing you definitely can do is pay attention to your sleep.
Yes, absolutely. And so it's interesting. You mentioned Clubhouse, and I've been in these different rooms on Clubhouse. Anyone that's listening, if you haven't been on Clubhouse, doesn't really matter. But point being, like, you might hear more voices of more people than in certain other platforms. And what's interesting is I've been hearing more and more people. It's like people get the importance of sleep, you know, so they get it. And yet it's something seems to be missing in the application. And of course, there's all kinds of things that we'll talk about today that are maybe out of the frame of knowledge that will impact or can make a difference in our sleep. Certainly. And I'll share my story. Certainly there was years when I didn't realize so many of the things that I was doing were kind of bringing me negative or ill effects as it related to my sleep. But I think there seems to be a growing want in 2020. Supposedly the stats are that insomnia was, you know, Googled more than any time in our keyword search history in 1 year. So, you know, there's a knowingness that something is maybe not working, and yet the filling in the blanks of how to make that happen or make a real concerted shift over the long term is now what we're looking to tackle. So that's really my goal with Sleep as a Skill, is how to optimize, you know, sleep through technology, accountability, and behavioral change, and really bringing in some real partnership, maybe the same way we do with, you hire a personal trainer because you're not moving so much. You hire a nutritionist because there's something's missing with how you're managing your food. And I think that that's one of the next steps for us with sleep, because we've really dug ourselves a bit of a hole in our modern society since we're living so off kilter for how we used to live.
Yeah, Mollie, I have so many questions. I am one who has abused my sleep for so many years and just said it's just another more. It's just more time where I can work and I can get things done. It's my creative witching hour. I stayed up very late last night just so I could be exhausted for you, so you can see and hear what exhaustion looks like. And I wrote all night, right? And we also write screenplays, and my partner and I have been writing in kind of in a writing sprint this month. And I was going. I didn't want to go to sleep, but I'm exhausted today, and I have a full day of meetings. So what does one do when one looks and says, well, it's my creative witching hour. It's the time where I get things done, and I know how important sleep is. How do you tell yourself go to bed?
Yeah. Okay. So I can so relate to that. So one, it might provide some context too, to know that there is a judgment-free zone here, because I did everything not to do for years and years with my sleep. And, you know, I have a very different background than maybe other sleep experts that you might be bringing on or, you know, might speak to. Because so for me, what it was I, you know, entrepreneur living in the middle of Manhattan, burning the candle at both ends. My fiance is a professional poker player and has, you know, poker companies. So on Poker People hours, and which, if you're familiar with that, is not part of the, you know, the thing that we're maybe striving for. So it's doing that for years and years and really not making the connection, not listening to some of the things that were showing up in my life, where I got shingles at one point. I had gastritis. Okay. Yeah.
Same here, both. Keep going.
Twins. Yeah, exactly. Like, and then for me also my mental health, I was getting anxious. I was getting stressed. I was getting edgy. I was just, you know, it wasn't, my productivity would be, you know, a lot of things just weren't working. And yet I didn't have a frame of reference to know what it could be. So I thought that was just me and life. So I can completely relate. The reason I share that background is that for me, it wasn't until I went through my own period of insomnia, traveling internationally, and it was really felt like my absolute rock bottom in my life. You know, it was obviously didn't happen in a vacuum. There's so many other things that I wasn't managing well in my life, and just the stress of our businesses, taking them on the road. And in that period, it actually felt like this rock bottom. And I went to the doctors in Croatia and I was like, I can't sleep. I brought Google Translate and I leave, with their version of Ambien. And that was a scary moment for me of what is my future? What is my life going to look like? But also I was desperate to sleep. So I still took the thing, but it was this conflict of knowing, like, I know this, I don't want to go down this path, and yet I feel stuck and I don't know what else to do. So obviously it's a bit of more of extreme example in some cases. And also I've seen many people come my way of something happened. They start taking something or they start making these habits, and then now they're in a real rut or, predicament of how to restore things. So
Is it the hours you get? So Sarah has taught me about the cycle of the day and getting your body into the right flow and cycle of the day. But if I got 8 hours throughout the day versus sleeping over, during the nighttime, do they both have the same impact on your body?
They have a very different impact on our body. And yes, Sarah is a fantastic resource to just mine for, all of this information and, to bring a perspective of, I guess the bad student in sleep, which is what I was for so many years. And now seeing the other side of it, it really, truly can be like night and day. But from a sleep architecture perspective, when we have that piecingness to our sleep, like a, polyphasic or trying to grab pieces of sleep at different parts throughout the day. One, it's going to look very different than a continuous period of sleep. Two, if it's at the wrong time, or not wrong, but if it's at times of day that are misaligned with the rhythms of nature, then that's really where we can see things go awry. There's differences in percentages of things like your deep sleep to your REM sleep to your light sleep, depending on your ambient environment. If you have a lot of light in your environment because you're trying to grab sleep at those, counter times, then that can adjust what type of sleep you get into. There's so many things to consider. But, to officially answer what you said about the creativity window, one, I just want to share full disclosure that was so a part of, we had a whole philosophy. So we were living in the middle of Manhattan. We had an apartment across the street from our loft space. So we'd have like live events there. They'd go late. Then after, by the time we get everyone out and whatever, then it's like, okay, peace, quiet. Now I'm going to write. Now I'm going to get all my stuff to, and that was absolutely as a whole, within the office, everyone was on that vibe. And we thought that we had it figured out. And all we had to do was just sleep in later. And yet, what we didn't realize was that there is a whole other possibility that laid before us if we were to test out what could be possible when aligning with those rhythms of nature. And now I want to share that now, all of us, all these poker people, as a unit are now getting up as the sun is rising and having this relationship to those rhythms, and then having count onableness during the day for productivity and then energy. And I'm not trying to say that there's a right or wrong thing to do, but we do see that there's certain, shift working is listed as a possible carcinogenic, by the World Health Organization. There's real tangible results or impact when we do choose to live kind of off that rhythm.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive that you've got the poker players to get up with sunrise. How have you managed that?
Certainly not all of them. I should make it like they're all doing it. No, but within the organization that we've got, so we've got it started to shift a whole kind of culture, and because it used to be that no one would be available. You go on Slack and it's just crickets. No one, we all talk about Slack. Yeah, there was nothing until noon or something. Yeah, and now it's a whole other way of relating. And also, I work with a number of poker players too, so I'm certainly in that conversation around how can we bring management of sleep even to a very tricky
I suppose
profession.
They can see they can get the edge by doing that.
Yeah,
you need to edge. You need to.
Yes, exactly. And they have, for the real, seriously, they really relate to themselves as cognitive athletes for, the people that are going really full in, and it's akin to like chess or something. You just have to be intact, and your choices are resulting in sometimes thousands and thousands of dollars. So, how to have that edge is really a big deal. So absolutely.
Yeah, we need some measure, don't we? Because that's totally true. If you could gauge your choices and match it to your sleep, how many of us make poor choices, and if you could attribute some of that down to sleep, I'm sure people would prioritize their sleep a whole lot more, in all kinds of realms of life, financial, relationships, the whole lot. It's all connected, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why the poker analogy is a nice one for behavior, because it's each choice and action can have such a high stake, connected to it. So with that, then identifying and making that commitment to make that shift in that area around sleep can be a big deal for them. And we can learn a lot from them because they certainly have often, dealing with things like adrenaline surges or stress or what have you. And at the exact times that often we're not looking to cultivate that, they're playing late and they've got all of this arcing happening late, and how to bring that all down. And if certainly they're not at all, as we know, the only field that has that, doctors can have that in the middle of the night. They are needed to save lives and be present and make really important decisions. And often, and sometimes it can go awry, and then you're expected to go right to sleep after something so intense. It's, it takes a lot.
Yeah.
Can you catch up on sleep?
So the catch up on
You're
sleep
optimistic,
thing.
aren't you, Russ? Look at him. Look at his eyes.
I'm exhausted.
Can you? Okay. So what's interesting is there's, we actually just had the Creative Rise Science app on. I don't know if you've seen that. It's a nice app that kind of can help guide you through energy or perceived energy, peaks and valleys throughout the course of the day. And they speak to sleep debt. I'm always cautious when I talk about sleep debt because I've noticed that people seem to think, oh, well, if sleep debt, then I'll just make it up on the weekends or what have you. And so what I want to say about that is on the short term, there seems to be a kind of rebound effect. So say you don't sleep so well, in your case, what's likely or could happen is that since you didn't sleep so great today or for last night, then often we can have this kind of rebound sleep that then is really goes after those richer periods of sleep staging. And then you often feel a bit more refreshed the following day. Or sometimes the unfortunate times when it stacks a couple days, then your brain really seeks out the sleep that it needs. And so can be an example of kind of cultivating or making trying to find homeostasis when we have gone off kilter. However, one of the things that we do know that we have a lot of question marks about the ability to counter is the thing that's come out around lymphatic drainage. Yes. And you've probably heard around that, right? So for anyone that's not familiar, then you might have heard of lymphatic drainage with an L. Lymphatic drainage with a G is more this understanding of fairly recent discovery of this concept of, oh my goodness, at night during deep sleep, primarily we're seeing this experience of kind of cleaning or cleansing of the brain that's happening to wash out basically, the day's amount of toxins or left, kind of waste from the brain. But the problem when we don't actually do that consistently and prioritizing particularly deep sleep is then we're having this buildup of these plaques, these kind of amyloid beta plaques. And what's challenging about that is once you're kind of having that plaquing, that calcification, it's then how to remove that, or not remove, but lessen that. Mm-hmm. And that seems to look very similar to brains with kind of neurological difficulties. So talking Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, things of that nature. So that's one of those areas where you can't just say, oh, okay, we'll just make up for it, because we really don't seem to have a response to that.
Well, I really appreciate you being here. I'm going to go get some sleep.
Gotta go.
I gotta go. I guess it's, I have really focused on sleep in the last year. I have started taking melatonin. I really am trying to get the consistent sleep. I've spent years and years and years not sleeping. Let's go to boot camp real quick. How does one get started to kind of reset that sleep and do it? I'm a light sleeper, so the dog sniffs his nose and I'm awake, right? So
yeah.
So how do you boot camp this? How does one start your entire process?
Yeah, great color. And one thing I want to say too is if anyone else is listening, because I'm sure you're not like obviously a weirdo for not having a great night of sleep last night. There's so many people that didn't have that great night of sleep when they're listening to this.
But that's okay. That's fine.
Embrace our weirdo-ness. So what I want to say about that is, one, I hope that then even when we do have that sense of, all right, this is really not working, maybe I want to get serious about this. That can be such important fuel. That's really what it took for me, to my stubborn self, to transform my whole life around my sleep, was that I hit rock bottom and I just could not sleep and my life just did not work. There was no workability there. So from that place, one, using that as the commitment or the fuel to actually stand in this concept that really sleep is a skill in our modern society anyway. So then from that place, having that commitment. So then from there, what I would say is there's two key frameworks that we utilize at Sleep as a Skill. One being the sleep tripod. And so I happened to have this here. It was really not as like a prop, but it's to hold my phone for IG Lives. But a tripod, we all know what those look like, right? So having those three legs to hold up and create workability. And then if there's one leg that's kind of out of alignment, then it's likely not going to kind of stand. So out of those three legs, it's having workability within our psychology, physiology, and environment. And I would make the argument that for most of us in a modern society, our environment can often use some up-leveling. I just got back from a little getaway to Palm Springs, and we stayed in a hotel, and it was a nice thing. And my birthday's coming up, so we got a nice place, and yet there was missing of all kinds of things that could really help to make a difference with your sleep, even though it's a hotel meant to do that. So what I would wager is that for our average environment, just the lead up of what we're doing really post sunset, or sometimes even earlier, depending, can make a real difference in that environment. But then certainly from the minute we first wake up, what our environment looks like. So there's a lot to go into that. And then our psychology can be around kind of chronic. So one, there can be acute. And so I'll have sometimes people come when they just got a divorce, there's a death, there's something happened, and they're really having an experience and they can't sleep because they're, it's such a shock. And yet what I often see more of though, is chronic stress, where they've just kind of been in this sympathetic state for so long. And now it's kind of like, that's how life is for us, being in that state. And then unfortunately, all kinds of ill effects for our sleep. So that one around psychology, and then physiology, often these can go all hand in hand, where now our hormones are all out of whack, our thyroid's a mess, our, magnesium levels are low, or vitamin D or zinc or iron or whatever, all kinds of things. Right. So then having all workability in those three areas. Now, so once you kind of take a whole assessment of those and get a sense of maybe, and there might be some glaringly larger than others, so we want to have an area of focus, sort of addressing all those. Then the second framework would be circadian rhythm entrainment, and you can find that in just about any chronobiology, textbook or what have you. And but it's the application of it that I find really challenging for a lot of people, because there's so many things, especially Russ, as you're tired and you're just like,
yeah, he's hanging.
Just tell me the thing.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because Sarah, I believe in episode 7 or 8 in our first season, talked about circadian rhythm. It probably was both, because she talked about it a lot. And we really tray to focus on the application of biohacking, right?
Yes.
And yes, I am, the lay person, but the reality is that everybody is a lay person, right? And trying to figure out this complicated world. I mean, everything is so complicated. Everything has gotten more complicated. Biohacking is just up to the game of how to stay healthy. And you see all these amazing people that are living these wonderful lives and talking about all these wonderful things that they do. but everyone can do it and everyone should start doing it, but it's where do you start? I would say start with your sleep, because I feel like what you're saying to me is it actually starts your day, right? I mean, and Sarah has always said, get up before the sunrise. And so I did that this morning, which then that was why I only had 3 hours of sleep. I'm kidding. But
it does reset you for the day, circadian, Russ. It's a good thing. You need to get into the habit.
Reset me before I even turn. I had to turn off before I reset. But that's amazing. So circadian rhythms really kickstarting the system and really making sure you do it. But you mentioned some really important things in there that, traumatic incidents, depression, things that are really kind of above and beyond. Even in those scenarios, you're saying that there are ways to combat insomnia and sleep.
Yes. And, certainly because mental health and sleep go very much hand in hand. So certainly I'm not making it like a total panacea. So there are times when there are things that are a big deal. We want to really have, support and take proper steps for all those things. And what we do tend to know is that when you take something that's really not working, say on that mental health topic, and then you also layer in disrupted sleep, disjointed sleep, a whole mess of things there, then there seems to be a swelling, an augmentation of all of those things, to the next level. So it's certainly going to aid. And, what I would say to bring it back to that practical application is one of the things that I think we really lean into at Sleep is a Skill is that technology component. So despite the fact that a lot of what I often am talking about is like, hunter-gatherer days and ancestral health and all of these things, at the very same time, what seems to be the case is, technology is here to stay. We're talking speaking thanks to technology right now. We're likely not going to, shun it. And so what can be possible is to lean into some of these pieces of wearable tech that can make a difference with, or even non-contact tech, might be another option, but some of that tech that can make a difference with your awareness with your sleep and commitment. But also I think the gamification of that process can really make it, dare I say, fun. This is what I do for fun. I don't and, really starting to have accountability, having that group environment with other people, even if it's one other human, to start bringing in the changes that we can make with our health and our sleep. But then really when we start to see, oh my goodness, by going to bed at this time, by eating at this time, by getting sunlight at this time, by getting darkness at this time, all of these things, I can lower my heart rate. I can lower my respiratory rate while I'm sleeping. I can improve my heart rate variability. I can improve, thermoregulation. All of these sort of things can really be an unexpected and quite pleasant side effect. So I would say with these frameworks that I'm offering, one of the first things that we do right now with Sleep is a Skill, we have everyone wearing an Oura Ring at this point in 2021. And the tech is constantly evolving. I'm testing all kinds of things, and there's, an opportunity for more and more, and how to live within alignment of if you want to be mindful of things like EMFs and kind of airplane mode for these things. There's options there, but I think that can be a great place to begin, especially if we've been living off kilter for so long. And, you try the one day to get up by the sunrise and you're like, all right, this is miserable. It's not for me. And then you go back to, what's familiar. But if we have that, numerical system where we start to see, okay, so I'm averaging this amount of sleep and I'm going to really take this on, then we can start to really make a real difference with that. Yeah. So then we use that as our anchoring system, our dashboard for then bringing about all that circadian rhythm entrainment. So, because that circadian rhythm entrainment, there's a whole slew of things that we can do to strengthen our circadian rhythm. I think that's a big point for people too, is that this concept that, or I certainly didn't know for so many years, that my circadian rhythm was something that could either exist really on a spectrum, and it can be over here kind of on the weak side, or it can be really strong and robust. And the strong and robust side might be people that you've probably seen where, you might all go out to whatever, a wedding or something, and everyone's out late, but then that strong circadian rhythm person, they still get up at the exact same time they always get up. And you're like, really? And yet that is a fantastic example of really being connected to that rhythm. And that's really what we want to go towards, is that.
Yeah. I think awareness is such a big piece. I mean, I know it's something we speak about a lot, like tracking, like taking responsibility. And I have an Oura ring. And I have to say, I thought I had good sleep because I don't ever have any trouble. You know, I've always said, you know, I could go to sleep on a clothesline and be quite happy. I don't.
Sure.
I'm a good sleeper. But I now have a sleep coach. And it's someone that
yes, that's right. Our shared friend. Yes, absolutely.
Friend, Dr. Joe DeGiro, who probably will be coming on to talk, but he does do my sleep coaching. And he showed me that you can see in the data this glymphatic cycle. You know, you can actually see where you have deep sleep and then you come out of it and then you go back into it because the brain is oscillating.
Yeah.
And when you get an awareness of that, you can start to see, okay, I didn't do that this day and my heart rate was slightly elevated. You know, you can really get granular. And I'm starting to see, you know, my heart rate variability go up from that. I become more productive. So actually, you know, even if you think you have good sleep, just having that awareness, or even if you don't, you know, seeing how bad it is. I mean, I've even got my mum on it now because she wasn't sleeping very well. And, you know, since she's had the ring, she slept like a baby. So I think sometimes it's just...
it provides something.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. And one, I acknowledge you for taking the steps on that. And, you know, and two, I'll see that too. People will sign up. We do, packages, or like a 90-day package around sleep or what have you. And people, even in the sign up process, it's kind of like when you book a vacation, you start working out because, you know, you're going to be in bikini or whatever.
Right.
Like something shifts and then they're like, oh, I'm already starting to sleep better. I'm like, we haven't even done anything. What is, you know, it's
just making those steps. It's making the commitment sometimes.
It's very consistent, and I've now counted Sarah's friends, and maybe you guys are all on Aura's, influencer program, but for gosh sake.
And by the way, they have no promo, they have no kickbacks, they don't do any of things. So in case anyone's listening, I'm like, what is this Aura thing? We don't get anything.
If you want to find Mollie and Sarah, first off, go to each of our podcasts and you'll find us there, and we're more than happy to talk about the Oura ring since it apparently works. But my question, I promise you, it's a question: Are there numbers that we should be looking at? Are there like benchmark numbers that we should be looking at as like key numbers for sleeping?
Yes. So such a good question, because I will have people come to Sleep as a Skill that have had, you know, not to keep targeting Oura, but Oura Ring, or have BioStrap, or have Whoop, or have, Apple Watch, or all these things that they've been using for years. And they still are, you know, then now they know even more that their sleep's not great, but they haven't connected what steps to take. So really fantastic question. And sometimes they're focusing on for a nocebo effect of the things that we don't want to focus on. So one, I will say, I have everyone that we're working with really not look too much into the sleep staging classifications. And because I will get a number of people that come specifically they'll say, oh, I only have, 20 minutes of deep sleep on average. And, you know, they're really stressed about these things. And so, but unfortunately the stats right now on this current model, and a lot of the models that are hand or wrist based, don't seem to stack up particularly well to PSGs. So with that, the sleep staging classification is not as great. They do tend to be fairly decent with the knowingness of, are you awake or are you asleep? Not always. There's still the times when that's not the case. But you can often get at least a ballpark around when-ish you went to sleep, when-ish you woke up, when-ish you had some wake-ups throughout the course of the night. And often, or not often, but there are times when people will notice, oh my goodness, I didn't even know I was waking up that many times. And we might have some interventions that we can take and to mitigate some of those things. So to answer your original question, I have more people focus on some of these biometrics that can indicate recovery. So things like heart rate throughout the course of the night and the arc of that, things like HRV is a big one we lead into, heart rate variability, because it can be a really fantastic marker of recovery, of course, because kind of what it is. But secondly, particularly throughout the course of the night, to get a sense of how rested or, recovered you are the next day. And then leaning into things like body temperatures can be especially helpful for people who are menstruating, can be helpful for us to get some clarity around other disruptions that might be happening around hormones and things of that nature. And then respiratory rate can also be really eye-opening. So leaning into some of those metrics that relate to and also just share with us our overall health can be really important. And then even some of the daytime markers that many of these will pull of how active are you throughout the day? How often are you just kind of sitting and immobile throughout the course of the day, and how can we up that mobility? Because then, of course, that will lead into certain things. But I will say, hands down, the top two things that people are often shocked about with the wearables is the difference that, and this is, there's other things that can indicate this, but for the average person, it's eating late and drinking late, that are just these things that will affect those other markers that I indicated, with such count-onableness. And I think often, even if they have these wearables, sometimes they're not honing in on how much those things are affecting, or they haven't pieced together that part of the variable, or that variable around, oh my goodness, I have a say in how this goes and I can shift these behaviors. So we do daily sleep bots where we kind of have people reflect on, did you hit kind of your goal bedtime? Did you hit your wake up time? If not, judgment-free zone, like not, things happen, but at the same time, like what came up? Because often we'll start to see like very count-onable patterns, and then we can start to have some power around those things. But then when they start to see, when I have the late night, even it can be a healthy quote unquote snack, then that can start to skew things in a direction that we don't want, and it really impact that ability to get that deep sleep.
I did see an article this morning about getting up to pee at night, and it's one of the number one disruptors of sleep. And you mentioned something, and maybe it's related, and maybe not. You're the expert. But is it if you drink late at night, is that the problem? So if you stop drinking at a certain time, that obviously would prevent you from waking up in the middle of the night and going to the bathroom.
Yeah. So that's a great one. So there can be like 10 different reasons that you might, at least, of just popular reasons why you might be waking up at night. So one, just like waking up and then you're just up and you didn't even have to go to the bathroom. And so that we can talk about those. And then if you have it that you have to go to the bathroom, one surprising one for that, because sometimes it is, you legitimately just have to go to the bathroom. And then, yes, we might want to manage some of the, liquid intake that we're taking, what time, or, kind of it's a sweet spot, because we don't want to be dehydrated while we're sleeping, because the brain really requires that hydration for sleep. But at the same time, we don't want to obviously drink a whole bunch right before bed, because obviously that's going to disturb our sleep cycle or sleep wake cycle. So from that place, then sometimes it is just that. And then other times, though, I think one of the more surprising can be glucose and regulation around crashing, or like an ups and downs and instability around glucose, because we'll have a lot of people wearing continuous glucose monitors. And we actually did a focus group with Levels Health of overlaying Oura Ring users and continuous glucose monitor users. And what we would see was an overlapping, not always, but there were times where there would be an overlapping of when there would be a crash and then a wake up. And so with that, what the confusion would be, I obviously have to go to the bathroom, and we would misattribute that needing to go to the bathroom to the bathroom, but it was actually, looks like correlation between one of the root causes being a crash in that glucose while you're sleeping. And those certainly can be a very common connection for frequent wake ups. So when we start to stabilize that glucose throughout the course of the day and certainly into the evening, then often one of the happy side effects is less wake ups throughout the course of the night, because also important thing about that is then the body kind of freaks out a little bit. So there's that adrenaline and cortisol release. So then you're actually like up annoyingly. And you're like, why am I up at 3, 4, whatever in the morning? And so that's something to really take note of. And I think that's one that a lot of people are surprised because we'll start working together and it just becomes clear, like, okay, let's get you a glucose monitor. And they're like, why? And yet it can really be super, super helpful.
Yeah, that's really interesting, that link between blood sugar and getting up in the night, because you're right. Once you're awake, then you need a wee. So I suppose,
yes.
So, but if it's the blood sugar that's waking you up, then that's, I can imagine.
Yeah.
You get people on a diet that stabilizes their blood sugar and you don't wake up anymore, regardless of what if you've had a cup of tea before you went to bed. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's so connected, isn't it? You have to really look holistically at health. We can't just, you can't just stop drinking 2 hours before and carry on with all your sweets and crisps and expect to sleep better. You really need to do the whole thing.
Absolutely. Yes. And I've seen with diet, because I was just testing out with keto recently, and then seeing it's alarming for me seeing how much of a difference just a shift in, basically your macros that can result in all kinds of my HRV was shifting, the amount of wake ups were shifting, all kinds of things. And, I'm doing this all day, every day. And, not really. And that was an area that too many variables. I often do change a lot of variables, so I'm not the best test person, but this was a time where it was like, all right, something is connected here. And it's just, I think it can be empowering for us to start to look at sleep through the lens of kind of a little detective, or that's
the whole
right.
That's the whole thing about Rebel Science. Yeah, that you're using yourself as the tool. Yeah, and you're looking
exactly.
At yes, so cool.
Bring
Mollie,
that curiosity.
And I know you've got some resources on your website. You just said that you had things that people can download on there.
Oh, yes, definitely. So on there, there's a free sleep assessment on there. So you can do like whatever you're dealing with your sleep. Then you can get some kind of tailored advice for you. And then we also have our weekly newsletter that by doing that, then you can get that each Monday. And then we also have a weekly podcast, and great people like Sarah have joined us on there. So lots of information. And then we also have a downloadable PDF around optimized bedroom. So optimizing your bedroom through like low tech and high tech. So yeah, a lot of different resources on there. And then also just really our goal is to share some kind of uncommon things. I know, Sarah, we were talking about that before too. Like, even just for some reason, things like in the last couple of weeks, we've had, I think, 3 different people talk about just the difference they saw in their HRV and their sleep when they got NAD IVs. And like, I'm not saying you need to do that, but I'm just saying like just out of the norm things of if you are looking for that kind of next level optimization. But if you're not looking for next level optimization, even if you just want like the basics, we also want to apply that as well. So lots of practical takeaways.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Wherever you're at with your sleep.
Yes,
you can improve.
Exactly. You can certainly improve.
Mollie, we're coming to the final chapter of our podcast today. So let's do a couple things. Number 1, the Sleep is a Skill podcast can be found everywhere, I imagine, on Apple, on iHeart, and the website is sleepisaskill.com.
Yes.
Okay. And then one last question for you. Sarah and I like to end this with some quick tips. I just have a quick question for you. I'm going to let Sarah ask the quick tips. How many hours of sleep do you get at night?
Oh, good question. So I actually average about 7.5. And, okay. It's interesting because I have some clients that are, these 8.5, these 9, but I've also seen shifts for myself at different points when I'm doing I'm always testing a lot of different things. So depending on the amount of, workouts I'm undergoing, or different parts of the seasons, different things can certainly shift that. And so there's times when it will augment to around a little over 8, but I do seem to have that sweet spot around 7.5.
Cool. Yeah, I have 8 now, which is cool but the lockdown is helping that. It's killing my social life, but it just means that, I now get a bit more sleep.
Sarah's consistent male companion is me, and my consistent female companion is Sarah. Yeah, and my wife's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm podcasting downstairs with Sarah Turner, the rebel scientist." So
amazing.
Yes.
I totally get that. I know. And it's interesting too, because the difference in kind of tendencies for people, my fiance is like this 8.5 guy. He like needs that sleep. He just fully leans into that. And for me, it's just, you should have seen me back when I couldn't sleep. So this seems insane to consistently get the, 7.5 to sometimes 8. But yeah, it is really interesting to see the different kind of sleep needs per person, especially when you get it ironed out and you can start to really have a baseline. It's not just like you're trying to make up for lost sleep.
Well, whatever you're doing good, Molly, because you look fabulous and you're always totally on the ball. So,
I got really good lighting over here. I know we didn't talk about sun.
I have terrible
lighting. This is one benefit because we're talking about poker before. We're in Vegas, and Vegas has like nonstop sun. Right now we're headed to Austin. We're thinking next, but for right now, I'm really taking advantage of the sun. I know we didn't talk about light. I know Sarah's got you guys covered, I'm sure, on that topic, but that is just such a huge part of that component with sleep. So that light, that temperature, that meal timing, the exercise timing, that thought timing, all of those things are big, big deals. And I know Sarah will get you guys covered on all those topics.
Yes, we've got some experts too on quite a few of those topics. So that's going to be cool. We've got people who are up to all this kind of crazy.
Okay. I just want to make sure I put that in as a disclaimer. Like, I know we didn't get into that, but it's just fascinating the difference that can make in your overall life. It's huge. So yeah.
That's super cool. Okay. I think we've covered a lot in a very short space of time.
Yes.
So
go us.
That was super cool, Molly.
Sarah and I are going to start sending out T-shirts, and all of the T-shirts are going to just be Rebel with the Cause, because that's what we all are. That's what all of you are. So Rebel with the Cause.
I love that. I will wear that with pride, please.
Yes.
Brilliant. Well, thank you then, Molly. Well, I hope to catch up with you sometime soon. I hope soon this lockdown will be lifted and I can get back stateside and
yes, I would love that. Cool. And I really promise to take copious notes from Biohacking Congress. I've been,
please.
Yes. So I will certainly share with you what I learned at that, or flying out for that on Friday. First time getting on a plane in quite some time. So yeah, it feels like the world's opening up a bit, hopefully.
Well, America is. I don't know about the world, but.
Yes. Yeah. Well, good distinction. Yes, exactly. I just got a message from this place we used to stay in Bali because we were, doing that digital nomad thing after I got my sleep figured out for like 3 years, and got a message from Bali, and they're like, we're opening, come back. I mean, it's just so hard for some of these places with tourism. But I would love to connect more coming up soon. And as you guys start to come out of lockdown, hopefully very soon.
Yes, hope so. Fingers crossed, I'm sure. Well, thank you then, Molly. Take care, and we'll speak to you soon.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Bye.
Bye.
So, Sarah, one of the newer things we're adding this season is we're gonna get practical here. We're gonna actually apply the practice of our biohacking heroes, and we're gonna give our feedback on it. Does that sound good?
Yeah, we are, and it's going to be challenging because we've started off on an easy, but sleep, yeah, that's cool. We can do sleep, but as we get through this, there's going to be some challenges in there. But I think the only way to really know, what you think about something is to do it. Yeah. You have to try it. This is the whole concept of N=1, using yourself as your own experiment.
Yeah.
It's all very well to hear about these things, but can you really apply it? Does it really work? Well, the best way to know is to do it yourself. So I'm excited about this. I'm glad of the challenge.
Well, I am curious what did you do from Molly's session?
Okay, so from Molly's session, so actually it's been a couple of weeks. So I know we're going to do this on a weekly basis, but the sleep one, it's been a couple of weeks. And what I've actually done is I have a sleep coach, and I've been using the Aura Ring and collecting the data and having it analysed regularly. Okay. And I've been looking particularly at heart rate variability as a gauge of how my sleep is doing. So I am pleased to say that my heart rate variability has gone up And there were some interesting learnings actually from this, looking particularly at the sleep levels and when you actually have certain types of sleep. So the interesting thing for me is, although I was getting a lot of sleep, like 8 hours a night, I was maybe not getting so much deep sleep at the start of my sleep profile. And that's something that my sleep coach raised, because he also said, you have this thing called a glymphatic drainage system, where you have the water in your brain, the spinal fluid kind of flushing out your brain. And maybe I wasn't getting that. So I've started now to do all the tweaks we talked about in the podcast, getting to bed early, turning off technology. I've made a conscious effort to make sure that I kind of get up and go to bed at similar times. Okay. So for me, this was cool. For me, this was a learning, and I learned a lot actually by really getting granular about the different sleep stages. So this is something I'm going to continue with for sure.
Did you feel different? Did your body feel different?
Well, I feel good. I certainly feel good for it. I feel good for getting up at the same time. I don't feel groggy. So, I think and also, just knowing my heart rate variability is going up and that I'm making improvements makes me feel good. So,
that's good. The area that was interesting to me was the kind of the disturbances in your sleep, right? Of creating an environment for sleep. And I actually own an ostrich pillow. I don't know if you've seen them before. I used to have one. When you'd fly with it, you put it on. It's kind of has a pillow, and you can put it over your face, and it's a great sleeping device. It looks completely bizarre. You look like a giant light bulb from some Pink Floyd video. Right. And people are looking at you cross-eyed. But they have a new one called the Loop-Eye pillow that I actually purchased. I look like I was kidnapped and thrown into a dungeon in Guantanamo. My wife wakes up screaming that she doesn't know who she's sitting next to. However, it creates the optimal amount of darkness for me, because light is super disruptive for me, and we have a very light room where the sun, and as soon as the sun is up, it's like I'm awake. And I found that I am sleeping for longer periods of time. I'm not up and down and up and down. So that's been really helpful. And I'm glad she brought that up as kind of the undisturbed sleep part, which I found to be helpful. And I identified light as one of my biggest challenges, outside of the fact that we have pets and all the other things that go on. And
that's super cool. Yeah. So you're getting great night's sleep, but your wife's having nightmares, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, but great. That's been going on since the day we got married. So,
okay, well, that's cool though. So really, we give that a thumbs up. All of that information from Mollie. I mean, that was actually very cool. Lots in that podcast to take away.
Yeah, super helpful, and definitely check out her podcast, her website, and please support Mollie.
Yes, we say thumbs up for Mollie and all the information she puts out there. And even if you take just a few of these things away and step by step try and improve your sleep, that's it. You're off to a good start. Week 1, good start.
Good start. And her website is sleepisaskill.com.
That's right. Yes.
Sleepisaskill.com.
Sleepisaskill.com, and she gives you, if you go on there, you get an instant assessment, and then she gives you some instant tips of what you can do straight away. So highly recommended.
Great. We will also at breakingthegray.com have our blog article that will talk about all the great devices. I'll share some pictures of this ostrich pillow, and you can be the judge.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful.
Brilliant.
Well, Sarah, once again, life-changing. Much appreciated.
See you next week, Russ.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing your friends, not just yourself, but now your friends.
Pleasure.
All right.
Take care.
The Rebel Scientist Podcast is a Breaking the Gray production. Created by Russ Eisenman and Paul Wood. Hosted by Sarah Turner. Music and sound editing by Logan Shea. For more information and other fantastic podcasts, visit breakingthegray.com. That's gray with an E. breakingthegray.com.
Breaking the gray.